Good morning, everyone. I'm Scott McGrew. If you use Facebook to find old friends and LinkedIn to find new jobs, what do you use to find a copy of The Great Gatsby at 10 o'clock at night, the night before the book report is due? You could run from house to house asking the neighbors, or do the very same thing on your computer using a new social network called Nextdoor. It's kind of a Craigslist meets Facebook, a social network of neighborhoods. Membership in Nextdoor is restricted to people who can prove they live in your neighborhood, which means the conversations are ultra-local. Discussions about the new principal at the school or questions about why they're tearing up the street. And often warnings of a break-in that you'd never hear about on television or read about in the newspaper. Nirav Tolia has had quite the career in Silicon Valley, both successful, occasionally controversial. He's the founder of Nextdoor, which is less than 1 year old and is growing quickly, joined by Kim McNicholas of Pando Daily, Michal Levram of Fortune as well. Let me start with this idea that I think Facebook is vulnerable here. You can post on Facebook, hey, does anybody have a thing, a copy of Great Gatsby? And my cousin in Iowa can say, I have one.
Doesn't do you
Not helpful. This idea that I'm only posting to my neighbors, and I don't even necessarily need to know them either.
That's right. I don't know that Facebook is vulnerable. I probably wouldn't agree with that. I think Facebook has done an amazing job building a platform to connect to friends and family, but there's another opportunity in terms of a social network, and that's connecting with the people around you. They may not be your friends. You may not even know them, but they can be useful to you and you can be useful to them. If
Facebook were to some degree vulnerable and we can decide what sort of word we want to use, you wouldn't be in business. I mean, in other words, there is a missing spot here. You could post to Craigslist and crazy people could bring you a copy of The Great Gatsby. You could post to Facebook and it'd be too far. So there is a sweet spot there if you want to use that instead.
But do I really want to know my neighbors? I mean, I don't know any of my neighbors, and I haven't felt a need to really, not to be unfriendly, but I moved into a new house about 4 months ago. I don't know anybody's name. I haven't really met anybody on my block. I mean, people don't bring cookies anymore.
Sure. So it's a great point. And even though we call ourselves a social network, Nextdoor is really not about being social. It's not so much about just knowing your neighbors. It's not about becoming friends with them. It's about being useful in your neighborhood and creating a stronger neighborhood for everyone. So, for example, you may not want to know your neighbors, but if someone broke into your car, you would want to ask the people who live around you if they saw anything. If you lost your dog, you would want to ask the people who live around you if they've seen your dog. So this is not a status update. It's not photo sharing. It's not these kinds of social things that we generally think of when we think of social networks. It's a problem-solving network, and it helps you solve problems in the area in which you live.
One of the interesting things that I actually saw in there, I just signed up last night and created a profile and such, and I actually go running in my neighborhood, and what was really disconcerting to me is I had no idea there was someone that's been hanging out that looks like trouble on one of the trails that I go in. I had no idea until I went on last night. And so now I'm going to stay away from that trail. So that's really beneficial. But my question is, so why couldn't you just create an app and create groups? On Facebook? Why do you need a whole other social network for this?
We certainly have thought about this, and when we started the company 2 years ago, we thought to ourselves, maybe it would be better to take the distribution of Facebook and simply create an app like you said. It turns out that research has shown that only 2% of your Facebook friends are your neighbors. So you could create that app, but you wouldn't actually be connecting with anyone, because the people that we friend on Facebook don't necessarily live around us. We had to build something from scratch, sort of the same way LinkedIn built its colleague graph, if you will, from scratch, right? So we had to say, people don't know the people who live around them. Let's figure out an easy way to collect those people together in neighborhoods. That's why it's a private social network for the neighborhood. And then we'll make it easy to communicate with those people, not as your friends, again, but as people who can help you solve problems.
So,
go ahead.
I was just going to ask, so how do people find out about it and sign up? And I mean, if it's not really your friends, then how does it spread virally? Because isn't that the point of a social network?
Yeah, no, it's a great question, and it does spread virally. In fact, almost 100% of our growth has been neighbors inviting neighbors, and we make it very easy for you to do that. If you know some of your neighbors' email addresses, you can invite them, but very few people know that. We actually have a map of the neighborhood, which you probably saw when you signed up, and you can click on homes around you, and we will send postcard invitations on your behalf to them
Like
so they
actual
can join.
postcards.
Real, physical postcards that cost us 40 cents each.
In fact, that's one of the ways that you verify, because I can't just say I work at, or I live at 123 Main Street. I have to actually receive a postcard in the mail, or you can do it through a Visa card, because that'll go to my home, so that you know the person signing up for the social network actually lives at the spot he says he does.
Well, this is one of the most unique things about Nextdoor, and this is why it truly is different than Facebook and other social networks. We don't actually show anything publicly. You can only see what's said in your neighborhood if you prove that you live there, right? So there's no search engine optimization. There's nothing you can find on Google in terms of what people say in your neighborhood. You have to prove that you live within those boundaries, and then you get access.
But still, you're not completely safe. Your address is out there. Your profile is out there. And one of my greatest concerns is some of the people that are lingering and looming on some of these trails probably live in that neighborhood and do have access to Nextdoor. They may have criminal records. They may be, you know, a sex offender. Is it possible for you to make sure that those people do not, you know, get into this community, because they can easily stalk people?
Well, there are two things. First of all, the only thing that you're required to reveal about yourself is your name and your street name. You don't actually have to reveal your exact street address. So that's the first thing. The second thing is, when it comes to addresses of sex offenders, because they are required to actually report their addresses, we've integrated 50 state databases of those addresses. And if you actually try to join from one of those addresses, we don't allow you to do that. So we've done a lot of work to make this as safe and intimate a place as we can.
Nirav, how do you make money out of this? How do you
We don't make money yet.
Well, right.
Yeah, we don't make money yet. So I don't know, actually. I don't know.
How do you eventually make money out of it?
We believe that there's an opportunity to connect people who live in neighborhoods to local businesses that are in their
Do
neighborhoods
you need a
as well.
sales staff for that, though? I mean, you look at Groupon's sales staff or Yelp sales staff, they're just enormous sales staff.
Well, we've been able to launch almost 5,000 neighborhoods with about 30 people, and so we're always looking for ways to use technology to create more scalable ways to expand very quickly. I don't think that we would take the path of sort of a yellow pages sales force, if you will, where you have someone in every region that's calling, trying to get businesses online. In fact, what we've seen in our neighborhoods today is that the businesses are actually joining, if they can verify that they live in the neighborhood, and they're doing everything themselves. They're advertising themselves, self-service that way.
But that doesn't do any good for you when you're trying to make money off of that advertising.
It doesn't today, but I think
that's a good point.
It doesn't
how do you
today.
prevent them just from advertising through their own profile?
We probably won't prevent them. See, the difference here is, because you know the people that you're communicating with, if you're someone who comes in and you're just advertising all the time, or you're creating trouble, or you seem suspicious, that sort of thing, people actually won't respond to you. People won't engage with you, right? So there's real reputation here. This is different than other social networks that are virtual communities. This is a real world community. This isn't about communicating with people that live 2,000 miles away or 20,000 miles away. This is about people you may see when you drive into your garage every day, or when you're walking your dog. And as a result, the behavior tends to be very civil and actually very collaborative. That's what we've seen.
What are some of the advertising models that you've checked into, that you've researched, or that you're toying around with, aside from advertising?
And we have about a minute left.
We are actually 100% focused on user acquisition right now. We're 100% focused on creating the best user experience. And so the truth is, we have not spent much time, if any, thinking about monetization. It's not because we don't think it will eventually become important. It's because we're trying to take the path of first focusing on adoption and creating a great experience. And if we're successful doing that, we'll move on to monetization.
Nirav Tolia is the founder and CEO of Nextdoor. Thank you for being with us.
Thank you for having me.